Jungkook, the youngest member of BTS and widely hailed as the Golden Magne, is no stranger to shattering records. From YouTube milestones to Billboard #1s, he's done it all. Or so we thought. But what Spotify did just now has gone beyond any digital crown he's worn before. Why? Because this time, it wasn't just fans pushing his songs to the top. It was Spotify itself rewriting how the industry views Asian soloists. Did I ask this a new chapter in global music history? Could it mean that Western-dominated charts and gatekeepers are finally opening the floodgates for Asian soloists in a truly equal arena? More importantly, what does this mean for Jungkook, and why is this moment making millions cry, cheer, and whisper the same word across social media platforms? Finally, let's break it down without any grand announcement. Spotify updated its global artist ranking. They were stunned to see Jungkook sitting at the top. Not just among K-pop acts, not just among Korean singers, but as the #1 Asian soloist in Spotify's global artist history. And no, this wasn't a temporary spike or a passing trend caused by a comeback. This was sustained, earned, historic. For years, critics argued that K-pop idols only trended due to fan mass streaming. That outside of fandom support, they lacked mainstream impact. Spotify just demolished that narrative. By promoting Jungkook as a main feature on global playlists, including major pop, R&B, dance, and even fitness categories, they did more than acknowledge his talent. They validated him as a global artist, on the same pedestal as the likes of Ed Sheeran, The Weeknd, and Billie Eilish. And then it happened. An internal leak, still unconfirmed but spreading like wildfire, suggested Spotify's editorial team had privately selected Jungkook as the template for a new generation of global soloists. A source close to the streaming giant allegedly said, "The way Jungkook blends East and West, tradition and innovation, fan-driven momentum and organic growth, it's unlike anything we've ever seen. He's not just an Asian soloist. He's a case study for the future of pop." That single quote is now being shared across Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and news outlets. Fans are in tears. Critics are reevaluating. Music insiders are scrambling to understand how a 26-year-old Korean singer just flipped the script on global recognition. But the biggest question remains, why now? Why did Spotify choose this moment to finally place Jungkook on top of the world? Some point to his solo debut. With 7, 3D, and Standing Next to You, Jungkook didn't just dip his toes into the waters of pop. He cannonballed into them, delivering vocals, visuals, and versatility that critics said rivaled even Western veterans. He collaborated with Latto, Jack Harlow, DJ Snake, and Major Lazer. His songs were played in clubs in New York, cafes in Paris, gyms in Jakarta, and taxis in Cairo, but others believe it wasn't just the music, it was the message. Unlike most pop stars, Jungkook remained humble, emotional, human. He didn't parade ego. Instead, he opened up. In interviews, he talked about feeling pressure, perfectionism, missing BTS, and even moments of doubt. He spoke not just as a superstar, but as a young man trying to find his place in the world. That vulnerability struck a chord, when Spotify elevated him. It wasn't just an algorithm reacting to numbers. It was a reflection of what the world now values in music: authenticity, diversity, and emotional resonance. And then, there was another shock. Spotify's latest, Year of the Soloist global campaign just launched. The face? Jungkook. This has never happened to a Korean soloist. Not even during BTS's peak did an individual member become the global face of Spotify's campaign, appearing across billboards in London, New York's Times Square, and Tokyo's Shibuya Crossing, all at once. That line is now tattooed, literally, on dozens of fans who say they never felt seen in the Western music industry until Jungkook broke through. What's even more stunning is the ripple effect. Other Asian soloists, from Indonesia to Japan to India, have reported sudden spikes in streaming. Emerging artists are now being featured on global playlists under the label inspired by Jungkook. This is more than personal success. It's a generational shift. But is Jungkook ready for it? In a rare voice message released today, Jungkook simply said, "Thank you. I didn't expect this. I just wanted to sing. But if my voice gives you strength, then I'll keep singing. That's it.
No ego, no teatrix.
Just heart." And now, fans wait. What will Jungkook do next? Will he release a full solo album? Will he tour as a soloist? Is this a one-time phenomenon or the beginning of a solo era that redefines music's global landscape? More importantly, has Spotify finally opened the gates not just for Jungkook, but for every Asian artist who once believed the world wasn't listening? This isn't just a ranking. This is a revolution. And if you think it ends here, think again. Something even bigger might be coming. Why Jungkook? Of all the artists vying for global spotlight, why did Spotify hand the torch to this particular young man from South Korea? Could it be just numbers? Or is there something else? Something Spotify hasn't yet said out loud, but ARMY has felt for years. The answer, as it turns out, is far more emotional, calculated, and groundbreaking than anyone imagined. While the surface-level story screams about statistics and chart positions behind the scenes, something else was brewing. Something more intimate. Something that reveals Spotify didn't simply notice Jungkook. They studied him. Insiders close to Spotify's creative and data teams revealed a stunning internal memo dated just 3 weeks before the big announcement. It was titled, simply, "The Jungkook Effect." What was inside shook even seasoned industry professionals. It wasn't a list of numbers or graphs. It was a full psychological and sociocultural breakdown, explaining how and why Jungkook connects on a level most artists don't. They called him the emotional translator of a generation. They highlighted his ability to cross linguistic and cultural boundaries not by changing himself, but by staying authentically vulnerable. They noted that his live performances, facial expressions, even the way he bows before and after a song, all contribute to an experience that is more felt than heard. The document also referenced key data points. Jungkook's solo listeners on Spotify are not just ARMY. Over 42% are non-BTS fans who found him through pop playlists or viral moments. His collaborations trended in over 80 countries simultaneously, a number previously only reached by Rihanna and Bad Bunny. His retention rate, how often users come back to replay his tracks, is higher than 90% of all artists in Spotify's top 100. But perhaps the most revealing line was this: he doesn't just have fans. He has loyalty. Not because he asks for it, but because he earns it with every note. And then, it gets even deeper. Spotify's AI-generated song analysis tool, which breaks down the emotional tone of songs, found that Jungkook's voice registers unusually high in emotional connectivity, the same rare scale used to track voices like Adele, Sam Smith, and Freddie Mercury. This explains why people who don't understand Korean still cry during his performances. One engineer reportedly said, "Jungkook's voice contains vulnerability. It vibrates with anxiety, love, hope, fear, and somehow still makes you feel safe." That's rare. That's why people can't stop listening. So no, Spotify's move wasn't just numbers. It was soul.
It was storytelling.
It was strategy, a mix of data and devotion. But it wasn't just the data team that had something to say. Spotify's global marketing director for Asia Pacific, Maria Lin, revealed in a quietly published interview, Jungkook represents the bridge between cultures, between fan-driven music and universal resonance. He's not just a Korean artist. He's a world artist who happens to be Korean. She also hinted, and this is where things get even more intense, that Spotify is developing something major. Something they've never done before for any soloist. Regardless of origin, here's what we know so far. Spotify is preparing to launch a new, global soloist series, a monthly spotlight that will include in-depth video documentaries, exclusive behind-the-scenes audio commentary, and even real-time fan interaction features. Guess who they're launching it with? Yes, Jungkook. The campaign is rumored to include intimate footage of Jungkook's recording sessions, unreleased demo snippets, and possibly even voice messages recorded directly for Spotify users around the world. Imagine opening your app to hear Jungkook say, "Hey, I recorded this just for you today." Spotify is also reportedly experimenting with live lyric visuals where users can watch animated expressions of lyrics while listening, and Jungkook's team is involved in beta testing. But while all of this is causing waves online, what made fans emotional today was something far simpler: Jungkook's silence. Despite all the headlines, promotions, and viral marketing, Jungkook has said very little publicly about becoming the #1 Asian soloist.
No gloating.
No press conference. No dramatic thank you video. Only one thing was posted: a single photo on his personal Spotify artist page. The photo showed his hand, just his hand, holding a pair of in-ear monitors. On the left one, his name was etched in gold. On the right one, a tiny word in Hangul, "Kamsa," thank you, an O face. No staged shot, just gratitude. That small image hit harder than any loud announcement could. Fans around the world posted their own thank you messages in dozens of languages. For showing us our voice matters. For proving talent can come from anywhere. For carrying us when we didn't even realize we needed it. But not everything was celebration. The industry's response has been divided. Some Western pop critics expressed discomfort with how fast Jungkook rose to such dominance. A few accused Spotify of pandering or chasing the BTS wave. One article even asked, "Is Jungkook really global? Or is he just the latest trend?" That sparked outrage across social media. Fans clapped back with timelines, statistics, and side-by-side comparisons. Many highlighted how Western artists are allowed to rise fast without criticism, but when an Asian artist does it, it's called suspicious. Spotify, for their part, remained firm. Their public statement was simple, bold, and impossible to misinterpret. The numbers speak. The listeners speak. Jungkook is not a trend. He's a movement. And so, here we are. Spotify just crowned Jungkook the #1 Asian soloist in their global rankings. The world is listening. The fans are celebrating. But the story isn't finished. In fact, something even more unexpected may be coming next. Could Spotify be planning a full Jungkook live session album exclusively for their platform? Will we see Spotify-funded short films or documentaries about his journey? Is there a chance this recognition will lead to Grammy buzz or future solo world tours? And above all, how will Jungkook respond? Not as a pop star, but as a storyteller, as a brother, as the quiet, emotional voice who, against all odds, became the one the world can't stop listening to. The world was screaming his name, timelines flooded with hashtags. Spotify was crowning him the most streamed Asian soloist globally, yet Jungkook remained silent. No public statement, no emotional post,
No dramatic celebration.
just silence. But was it really silence? Or was it something deeper, something far more deliberate? Because while everyone else was focused on the numbers, on the shockwaves Spotify sent through the music world, Jungkook was focused on something else entirely. He had disappeared from the noise, but not to escape it, not to run from it. He was simply doing what he's always done when the world tries to define him with a headline. He goes back to work. That's right. While fans were anticipating a live stream or maybe even an impromptu performance, Jungkook quietly entered a private recording room.
No cameras.
No media.
No hints.
Just him, a microphone, and the music that started everything. It wasn't for an album. It wasn't even meant for release. He didn't need to tell the world how he felt. He needed to feel it through music. Sources close to his team shared that the first thing he did after the Spotify news broke wasn't to call anyone or check social media. He asked for time alone in the studio. He wanted to sing, not for a chart, not for approval, but to reconnect with the one thing that had never judged him, his voice. And that's what separates Jungkook from the rest. While others might have rushed to capitalize on the attention, he didn't. Instead, he grounded himself. He returned to the foundation that brought him this far. Hard work, humility, and a heart full of emotion too deep for words. Observers noticed a strange phenomenon that same evening. multiple unreleased demo files were briefly detected by Spotify's internal servers, private uploads, invisible to the public. Audio clips titled only with dates.
No titles. No tags.
And then they vanished, pulled back, saved for later. Or maybe never to be released. What were they? No one knows. But those close to the situation believe Jungkook was testing soundscapes, blending Korean traditional instrumentals with stripped-down vocals, experimenting with something intensely personal. Not for the world. Not yet. Maybe never. But there's more. What no one realized at the time, what escaped even the most passionate fans, was that Jungkook had been preparing for this moment long before Spotify made it official. He had changed his routine weeks before the announcement. Waking earlier. Spotted going into unfamiliar studios. Meeting not with producers, but with poets, visual artists, and film editors. Not for show. Not for content. But for creation. Quietly, steadily, without drawing any attention, IT was as if he knew something was coming, but didn't want to be distracted by the celebration. Because for Jungkook, it was never about the title. It was about transformation. And that's what this silence truly was. A transformation in motion that a moment that the public saw as stillness was actually a storm of emotion, creation, and introspection behind the scenes. While Spotify's algorithm crowned him, he was building something that no algorithm could measure. A legacy of intention, but the most telling detail? He didn't even open Spotify the day the news broke. Not once. He asked someone else on his team to verify it, to confirm. And then he nodded and walked back into the studio. He didn't need to see the chart, because he had already felt it. The wave of global support wasn't just digital noise. It was something he had already been hearing for years. In the screams of fans at airports, in the signs held up at concerts, in the quiet tears of international listeners who didn't understand the lyrics, but felt every word. And now he was finally ready to give back. Not with a speech, not with a post, but with something deeper. Something being created in the background. Did I S it an album? A visual project? A live session? No one knows yet. But what's clear is this. Jungkook doesn't want to be seen as the biggest Asian soloist in the world. He wants to mean something as an artist, without labels, without borders, without needing to prove anything anymore. Spotify put a crown on his head. But Jungkook didn't bow. He didn't celebrate. He simply looked up and started creating again. And in this era of noise, that kind of silence, it means everything. But it's not over. Because what's coming next, something that's been secretly in the works for 2 years, is about to be revealed.